Well, thank you very much for agreeing to the interview. Today, I'm going to interview Allyson MacLean, assistant professor at University of Ottawa and in the Department of Biology, no?
Yep, yep.
So today, she's also a member from the CSM, and we are going to, well, to interview. So first question, what is your research, your area of research?
My area of research, it's kind of diversified recently, but broadly speaking, what really appeals to me and what I love is looking at how microbes interact with plants, how they respond to one another. So both on the plant side of things, how does the plant respond to beneficial and pathogenic microbes? But I'm also a microbiologist in training as well. And so I'm very much interested on the microbiology side of things. So broadly speaking, I think plant microbe interactions. I'm very much interested in roots. I think roots are totally underappreciated. People typically focus on, the aerial parts of the plants, and traditionally there's a lot more research focused on the aerial foliar tissues of plants. But I really like going into the roots. That's where actually most of the interactions with microbes occur, is within the roots below ground.
Perfect. Really interesting. Second question is really related. So how do you describe your research to the members of the public? I think you did a really good job doing it, but
Yeah. Well, I think the things that people don't appreciate is that plants get sick, and so we're quite used to this idea that humans, you get a cold, and if you have a pet, that your animal can get sick. But people are usually surprised when I tell them that I study plant health and the microbes, the bacteria, the fungi that can either make plants healthier or make them sick. And so if it's a member of the public who's not familiar with science, doesn't have a scientific background, that's usually how I approach it. Is I look at how to make plants healthier, how to protect them from disease. And then that usually initiates a whole conversation about, oh, I didn't know plants got sick, and tell me about the plant immune system, tell me about the microbes, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
yeah, really interesting. The third question is, do you remember the moment that make you want to study microbiology?
Oh, I don't think it was a moment, but for me, the most important thing was my undergraduate thesis project. I didn't know I wanted to be a microbiologist. I didn't know I wanted to stay in research until I did my fourth year undergraduate thesis project, and I loved it. I loved being in the lab. I loved the cloning. I loved the smell of LB. I loved everything about being in a microbiology lab, growing the bacteria. I remember the very first time I did an enzyme assay, and I think it was a beta glucuronidase assay. Watching the tubes turn yellow in front of me blew my mind. As an undergraduate student, I thought that was the most amazing thing, to watch those tubes turn yellow right in front of my eyes. And so maybe if there was one key moment, that would be it. But I would say the entirety of my thesis project, I just loved it. I was hooked.
Really nice. It's important the value of undergrad and be able to be in a lab during the undergrad, no? Like sometimes it's underappreciated.
Yeah. I think that is so important. If you are an undergraduate student and you really don't know what you want to do, definitely try to take advantage of that honors thesis project and get into the lab. And you'll probably know very quickly, yes, I love this, or no, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Exactly. That was really what motivated me too in some point, because we in Cuba have to do thesis, everybody. So we have to be in the lab and experience. And I think that my time during the undergrad was the one that told me that I wanted to be a scientist.
Yeah, me too.
So the next question is, what do you generally tell a student or a postdoc who is interested in working with you?
Interested in working with me. Oh, hmm. I always encourage them to talk to members of my lab, actually. I think, to really get a good insight into how a lab functions, yeah, you can talk to the PI, you can get a gut feel about them, but what's really important is talk to the people that are in the lab, because that not only gives you an insight as to how the lab is managed, but also into who you're going to be working with and what is that environment like. I think one of the things that I emphasize, again, I've said this a few times, I study plant microbe interactions, is that I think it's fascinating and I love there's two sides to it, but that also means there's two sides to it. And you need to be willing to embrace both the microbiology and the plant biology side to it. And some people find that it can be a little bit overwhelming. It could be a little bit more challenging. And so you have to be willing to kind of go into that with your eyes open. I study obligate biotrophs, so a biotrophic fungi, and more recently a protist. And these are challenging organisms. We cannot transform them genetically. We can't grow them on a petri plate very well or at all. And so I also tell people that this is going to be more challenging than you might be used to. This is not E. coli. This is not salmonella. You need to be patient. There's limitations to what we can do, and go into it with your eyes open.
That's a really good advice, and we work with very challenging models that what other people can do very quick, we have to find different approach that can take longer.
Much
So
longer,
it's
more
something
limited.
frustrating sometimes.
Yeah. I think one thing that I would really want to emphasize to students, especially new master's students, because I've seen this enough now, it's not going to work the first time, and that is okay.
Yes,
Experiments rarely work right at the start. You have to go into it knowing that there's going to be troubleshooting. There's a working it out phase. There's kinks. There's things that you need to figure out, and that's part of it. And that doesn't mean you're failing. And sometimes for myself, I tend to take my work very personally, and it's almost like a personal failure. And I have to remember it's not. And this is part of the process. Science, it's almost like an evolution. It's not going to work right away, and you have to kind of stick to it and not, I don't know, not get discouraged very easily. And I've seen master students where they come in and I think they have this expectation, and then there's this, usually about 6 to 12 months in, they start panicking and getting worried. And it's like, no, this is normal. Give it a few more months, it'll be fine. And it is.
yes, exactly. The next question is, what do you tell them when they are graduating?
Keep learning. Life is life is all about learning, and don't ever stop learning. And whether that's in science or whether that's just more broadly about life in general, always keep learning, keep reading.
Yes, very good advice. And the last question, what do you remember about the first CSM meeting that you attended?
It's funny when you sent me this question, Adele, because two things came to mind. One is, well, that's where I met Adele, because that is one of the things that I remember from my first CSM meeting, was the one at which you and I met. And we really, I really liked meeting you and interacting with you. And so that came to mind. The second thing was the Toronto Raptors game. Do you remember that? It was the dance night, and there was the Raptors game on, and everybody was so excited, and there was such a really fun atmosphere. And I just thought that was super cool. So
You
those are,
know, most of the people that I interview, that I selected, and this was just random, that was the first CSM. I think that 2019 CSM was really amazing.
yeah, yeah. I guess we chose a good one to join then. Yeah.
Yes, I think that we had a really good time, and so many things came out of that meeting, and still so many things are going to keep happening, no? Like collaboration, work. Hopefully we can see each other in 2022. Well, those are all the questions. Thank you very much.